So you learned Spanish from what, basically nothing like 6 or 7 months ago? What started this and how did you do this?
Yeah, so I guess you could say that it started last year.
Okay.
um, we had a very difficult season, and it was actually a historically bad season. And so it weighed a ton on me all throughout the off season, and it weighed a lot on my teammates as well. So we entered this year with a new head coach, Matias Almeida, and the plan was from the beginning to flip the script, to bounce back and to show everybody that this group can be special. And so once Matthias took us into our preseason trip, we went to Cancun, and this was at the end of January.
Okay.
So I first met Matthias, and after the first 3 or 4 days in Cancun, I saw the type of person he is and the type of influence that he was going to have on us, because the way he went about the practices was completely different than what I was used to. We had multiple meetings where we were just sitting on the field before practice, and he would talk about life and soccer and the different experiences he had as a player, as a coach. And I could see right away how much of a connection he was making with us. And he talked a lot about how he wanted to get rid of um, any of the negativity that might be um, within the group still from the negative season that we had the year before. And he wants to give everybody a fresh start. And he wants to create a group where we all want to be around each other, and we all want to enjoy playing on the field with one another. And so, from my experience in Major League Soccer, this was a completely different approach where he was putting such an emphasis on positivity. Um, and it was amazing. So, after the third or fourth meeting that I was a part of at the end of January there, I told myself, I'm going to do everything I can to learn this language as quickly as I can. And so, sure enough, I think it was a week and a half or 2 weeks later, I had already spent around 40 hours on Duolingo, and I wasn't real vocal about it because I didn't want to put any pressure on myself to
Get it
be
right.
able to hold exactly, to get it right, to be able to hold conversations. But um, you could talk to one of my teammates, Shea Salinas. When we came back from that Cancun trip, we were there for just over 2 weeks. When we came back from that trip, we flew immediately to Reno, and before the Reno game, I told Shay, I said, I think I'm ready for an interview in Spanish. And
It's
I
pretty
said it
bold.
I said it as a joke, and no one really knew what was really going on. But that was where I realized that I was getting the hang of it pretty quickly. And so since then, I haven't stopped. I've spent time on the application every day. I think I have like a 210 day streak on Duolingo now, and I want to get to the point where I'm completely fluent, and I can talk to Matthias, and I can talk to my teammates, because he's somebody that I have a ton of respect for. And so I told myself I want to be able to learn from him.
There's like so much to unpack here. I mean, the first part is Matthias inspired you. He inspired you to learn Spanish. How many other people can you say inspired you that much to do something this time consuming. And let's be honest, learning a second language is not the easiest thing in the world either. So that's one part of it. And the other part of it is that obviously you wanted to do this to be a better teammate and expand your horizons as well. So let's begin with the first part, just the inspirational part of it. I mean, he alone is kind of the guy behind this.
Yeah, exactly. He really is. And his staff has done an amazing job of implementing their philosophy as well. But the initial inspiration came from the way he spoke to us through his translator in those 30 to 45-minute meetings before practice, where we were just sitting down as a team, and he was just talking to us. Like, he was talking to us not as professional soccer players, not as foreigners, not as Americans, not as Europeans, not as South Americans. It was just talking to us as people, and it was through his translator. And it took just a couple days for me to see the type of person he was and the type of impact he can really have on people.
Sure.
So immediately after that, I thought, I have to learn Spanish. Like, it would be such a waste for me to not be able to learn from somebody like this. And so I just told myself, I didn't know how quickly I could learn. I didn't know how good I can get, or if it was going to take me 5 years, if it was going to take me 1 week. But I remember I actually told Shay this as well when we were in Reno. I said, oh, I remember seeing somebody on a talk show where they had learned a language, like some genius had learned a language in a day or overnight or something. I thought, oh, maybe I could do it in a week or two. But I said it as a joke, but that was my mentality. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm really going to give it a shot.
Well, you
So,
basically did it in less than a year. And speaking of that interview, I mean, I saw the clip on Twitter the other day, the little pump up speech you did for Telemundo. So I'm going to already grant you and say that you've done it now. You've accomplished that goal. But I mean, the other part I wanted to get to was just what the heck is Duolingo? And this is not sponsored by them. This has nothing to do with them. But I find it amazing that this technology exists where, hey, I took Spanish in 4 years of high school and I learned a lot. And quite honestly, I've even retained a lot. I think in 20 years of the ability to forget it, I remembered a lot of it. But what is it about Duolingo? How do you do it? How did it work for you? And that process, what was that like?
yeah, it was interesting because I had never heard of Duolingo before we left for Cancun. So it was just the day before I went to San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw my brother, and I told him I was going to Cancun for a couple weeks.
Rough life, by
And he
the
said,
way.
and it's crazy because this was the night before I went to Cancun, and my brother told me, he said, "Oh, there's an app called Duolingo. Um, you should download it. Like, you should download it, and I think it'd help with your Spanish." And I didn't think anything of it. He just said that, and then after I had the experience I had with the first couple meetings there in Cancun, I immediately thought, oh, well, my brother said something about Duolingo. Maybe I'll try that.
Hmm.
And basically the idea is, um, it's constant repetition. So you're translating sentences from English to Spanish, and then Spanish to English, and then English to Spanish, and Spanish to English. And it starts off real simple, and then as you progress through the different levels, it gets more and more complicated. But it's incredibly simple, but extremely effective as well. And that's what I've said on social media. It's not that this is any type of sponsorship. I haven't taken any money from them
Right.
at any point. I'm just grateful, and this is great advertisement for them, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
But I am actually just legitimately grateful for them to design this application that's allowed me to do this.
Yeah.
So that's where this motivation is coming from, because it's been pretty quick.
Hey, I mean, sometimes when a product works as advertised and it is that effective, it deserves this recognition. So hopefully it's that. But I also want to make the point too, and I saw an hours total at some point. Was it almost 300 hours that you had spent?
Yeah. So the latest total, that Duolingo got back to me. I think it was a week and a half ago,
Hmm.
right when I had finished the application, which means I went all the way through. I think it's level 5 or 6, um, which is basically around like 100,000 different sentences
Wow.
translated back and forth. They told me that I had spent 240 hours on the application. By now it's probably around 250 or 260. So it's been a lot. And if you break it down, if you work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 12 hours, I guess it'd be like 20 days straight of doing that. So it's
Pretty
I mean it's
impressive.
a lot. It's a lot of time, but I mean I was inspired, and I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to tell anyone that I was going to do it. I just wanted the proof to be in the pudding, because I had a feeling that eventually I'd get an opportunity where someone said, "Hey, do you want to try an interview in Spanish?" And then, sure enough, a couple weeks ago, that opportunity presented itself. So
So you also kind of have a tool in your back pocket, though, because maybe somebody would look at you and think that you weren't completely fluent or fluent enough in Spanish, and they wanted to have a conversation about you without you knowing it. But now, obviously, you're able to translate and dissect that. Um,
yeah,
have any
exactly.
have any not that situation, but have any like cool or weird situations come up because you now know what other people are saying all of a sudden, whereas maybe before you certainly didn't?
Yeah, I mean that's something I'm still getting used to, because it's all happened so fast.
Yeah.
If you would have talked to me before the trip to Cancun, I would have known almost nothing. But to now, I think the most special interaction I have is with my teammates, because I was inspired by Matthias, but then I also wanted to help, try to make everyone who struggles with this language. I wanted to try to be some type of bridge, since I
Sure.
have been in San Jose for almost 6 years now. I know the city. I know the organization. I saw an opportunity to help people feel more comfortable. And so that's been really cool, is having, I mean, even my teammates even my teammates that I've been playing with for 3 years, they told me, they're like, how is this possible? You haven't spoke Spanish for any of the time that I've been here,
Right.
and now you do speak Spanish. So that's been really cool, because it's been living proof of how much of an impact it has just to be able to speak a few sentences in a different language, and how much it means to other people to try to meet them halfway
Yeah.
when it comes to communication.
And don't you find it, I mean, in the cool factor, like you're saying, this is a difference where Spanish is not the official language of, let's just say, the United States. I mean, clearly in California, it is so widespread, especially in San Jose. I mean, there's so many dual language speakers, but when you talk about meeting somebody halfway, like you're maybe some would consider you going the opposite direction. Like you're the one making a push and a reach to speak Spanish, whereas a lot of times an athlete would come to the United States and figure out that they need to learn English. And that's been
Right.
part of my job in covering a lot of pro athletes. A lot of them say, hey, now it's my goal to speak English after 2 or 3 years of being a pro baseball player or whatever. But here you are going the quote opposite direction. And I think that is super cool. I really do.
Yeah, and so that's what this year has made me realize, is I think, especially after how difficult of a season it was last year,
Hmm.
it took somebody from a different country, from a different continent,
Yeah.
that didn't speak my language at all. It took that person to come here to essentially turn my career around,
Wow.
and it's it's so powerful, and that, like, living through what I've lived through this year, it just it opened my eyes to realizing, like, how much we actually need each other, and how much it means to each other if everybody tries to do just a little bit more. It doesn't have to be 250 hours in 6 months, but I think everybody in the world, especially in this country, in the United States, can do a little bit more to relate to one another.
Yeah.
And I think Europe does a much better job of putting an effort into learning English, learning French, learning Spanish. But for some reason, the United States is just not as much part of our culture. That's just the way it is. But that's what I saw an opportunity to hopefully be an example to show everybody, hey, maybe we can all do a little bit more. That's all.
That's a great point. It's well said by you. That's very cool. So on the topic of broader things, social media, you're out there. I follow you now. All of a sudden, now that we've met a little while back doing a TV shoot, I think you do great stuff on there. You're always trying to engage people and build the fan base and be accessible. What's the athlete's thought on social media here in 2019? Because if you go there, it's a pretty busy place, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
Yeah,
It's
it's a good way to
interesting.
put it.
I I've put a lot of thought into how I feel about social media. I mean, I think it can be an amazing way to connect with people from all over the world, and it's amazing. It's an amazing way to keep in touch with people because all it takes is responding to a story or congratulating them on a picture. Um, so that's what I want to use it for, is to keep in touch with people, and I also want to use it to entertain. I think athletes have an opportunity where it's a unique opportunity where people actually are curious about what they're doing or um, how they interact with each other,
Sure.
and so it's fun for me. I mean, the video we did with Jerks, and I think that it's really cool for people to see athletes off the field, because I think sometimes the stadium, with the thousands of people watching, I think it dehumanizes athletes at times, where it's almost like there's some type of, like, it's almost like we're some type of animal in a zoo.
You're
I think
robots
I
out
mean,
there.
yeah, robots. Yeah, exactly. To where I mean, I especially like this. I see it so much more in the NBA and the NFL. The types of things people are willing to say about these players.
Right.
I think it's crazy. So I think social media is an opportunity just to humanize athletes, to connect the audience with the performer, which is it's a cool opportunity. So that's what I want to use it for.
You were born in 1995?
Yeah, 1995.
So are you super young or am I super old? Because I was almost passing my driver's test, I think.
Yeah,
Do
I
you feel like a
was.
young man or do you
Yeah,
feel
I mean,
older?
I signed with the Quakes in 2014, so
Right.
that I really felt young back then.
Right.
But yeah, I just turned 24 now, so I I feel young still, but it's definitely a little bit different than it used to be.
I hear you on that. Wait until you hit the 30s and then late 30s
Yeah.
physically. But maybe the point I wanted to make on that was just, from a young person's perspective and just going back to the whole social thing. And I find myself addicted to the phone occasionally. And I'm wondering from your perspective, a guy who literally grew up with the internet. I mean, when I grew up, it was budding. It was just emerging and evolving. I'm curious from your age group's perspective, is there like an addiction sometimes to it, you think?
Yeah, I think there absolutely is, and that's something I grapple with myself. It's okay. When should I be on my phone? When
Right.
should I not be on my phone? But for me, I justify it. If like I tell myself that if I'm using Instagram or iMessage or Twitter, whatever it may be, the majority of the time I'm on there, I want to be facilitating some type of relationship with somebody, so I have an opportunity to see that person again.
It's a good point.
But I think if social media is used to look at how the 1% of the world lives, and They're driving in Bugattis and going on crazy vacations, and I think it can be very unhealthy because I think it can make you unhappy with what you have right in front of you. But for me, I think social media and the internet in general can be an amazing tool as long as it's facilitating, as long as you're using it in the right way to facilitate more memories with more people in person.
That is also a very good take. Well said on that one as well too. So
Yeah.
you're a homegrown product of the Quakes. Grew up in Loomis, right? Just outside of Sacramento.
Yeah, Loomis. Yeah, I was born in Hinsdale, Illinois, but then moved to Loomis
Okay.
immediately after that.
And so, I mean, you talk about certain players who have these opportunities, and like you said before, it probably feels like forever ago when you latched on with the Quakes, but now to finally emerge and maybe you're at that point of your career where it's all starting to come together. Some closing thoughts I want to get to. First, just your personal journey. Um, what has this all been like? And did you ever expect that someday you'd be on an MLS team and there would be some weight to your career all of a sudden?
Yeah, I mean, I think growing up, I fell in love with the sport at a young age. My dad played professionally as well. He was in the Olympics in 1984, and he did a great job of supporting me
Yeah,
all throughout my youth soccer career. And he kept it fun, he kept it positive, and so I really just fell in love with it. And it wasn't always about becoming a professional. It was about enjoying every step, and I wasn't too caught up in whether or not I was going to make a U.S. youth national team or whether I was going to go to the best college team that was around at that time. It was more about enjoying every step and not looking too far ahead. So to answer your question, I wouldn't say I constantly thought about being a professional soccer player in the United States, but things started happening very quickly once I turned 17. I graduated high school in 3 years, went to Indiana, and then after my first semester at Indiana, signed with the Earthquake. So basically, went from being a junior in high school to a professional soccer
it's
player
amazing.
within a year. So that was crazy, and it's hasn't been. I think certain parts of it have been exactly what I expected. But then there's been all different types of challenges that I've faced, and I mean, looking back at my 6 year career now, I've just realized how much the challenges have taught me and how grateful I am to actually have those challenges. I know it sounds like a cliche, but I was telling my dad a week or two ago, I'm really happy I didn't reach certain levels of success at too young of an age because I don't think I was ready for it. And I think sometimes success at a young age can be dangerous when it comes to keeping your feet on the ground. So
Sure.
there's been all kinds of ups and downs so far, but it's been a ride that has taught me so much about so much about soccer and so much about life in general. So I'm really enjoying it.
Why do you think it is? And obviously, you were heavy into youth soccer, and your dad had prior playing experience. But what is that disconnect in the United States, maybe even specifically in California, where youth soccer is so popular? Heck, even adult leagues are popular for people to play in. But in terms of the MLS and soccer in general, it's not considered, one of the quote major four, right? Of hockey,
Right.
basketball, baseball, and football. What am I missing? Because I know I'm missing something here. I don't get it. I'm wondering if you have any insights as a guy who's on the inside as to maybe why it hasn't fully clicked. Clearly, people like the sport, they want to play it, but maybe in terms of, I don't know, attention or ratings, it's good and it's growing, but it's not considered with the elite yet.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with when Major League started or Major League Soccer started.
Hmm.
It's still such a young league, so we're growing and it's exciting because we're continuing to grow at a fast pace. But even just even just the 6 years now that I've been on the team, I've seen so much growth, and it's been amazing to be a part of. I mean, you look at going from us playing at Buckshaw Stadium at
Right.
Santa Clara University to moving into Avaya Stadium, and
Absolutely.
how gorgeous of a venue it is to play soccer at and to watch soccer at. I think that's a great illustration of how far this league has come, because that's happening in almost every major city that Major League Soccer is in. And I think that's what's the most exciting is I'm starting to notice that. I mean, you look at even our head coach. He's a world class head coach and he was coaching one of the biggest teams in the world. He just won CONCACAF Coach of the Year in 2018, and he chose MLS
Yeah.
to be his next stop. And I think that's a great example of how people across the world are starting to take notice, and they see the infrastructure that we have, and they see the product on the field improving year after year. So it's exciting to be a part of. I think there's great things to come for this league.
Very well said. And yeah, I mean, I think you can definitely see things are trending in the right direction. Maybe patience is what I need to preach to myself on this one. Like
Yeah,
it's happening, and it
exactly.
should be a certain way. It's going to take a little while to get there. Last thing for
Exactly.
you, if there's one thing that a coach or anybody told you along the way, a piece of advice, something that you totally live by, whether it's soccer related or not, what's something that
Yeah.
you really agree with that you heard that you would love to pass on to people?
Mm, that's a good question. Um, the the main thing that I've learned, I've had 7 different head coaches now, if you include the interim coaches
Right.
that I've played under, and so there's been a lot of different systems, a lot of different philosophies that I've played under, and it's made me realize um, how important it is to find your niche, and to not get too caught up in other people's opinions of you. I think for me, what's kept me going through the good times and the tough times has been a belief in my process, and how I've trained, and the energy that I bring, and how I've trained on my own. Ever since I was 18, I've been doing a very similar training regimen on my own. And so, regardless of any coach's opinion of me or any teammate's opinion of me, whatever I was going through at that time, I had a quiet confidence within myself that I was doing something right, and a coach could have any opinion that he wants of me, but I'll always be able to tell myself that I did everything I could to be the best player I can be. So that's basically the mantra that I've had in my head throughout my whole career. And then after that, you let the chips fall where they may,
Yeah.
because everything else at times feels like it's a bit out of your control. So I think it's just a quiet belief in yourself, and just keep on keeping on, basically.
Keep grinding, as the kids say. I'm only 38,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I just
exactly.
feel like, man, again, when I hear somebody was born in the 90s, that's still a trip to me. And there are athletes now born in the 2000s, which is a whole nother layer
Yeah,
of
exactly.
acceptance I'm going to eventually need to have. Tommy, this was great,
Yeah,
man. I
exactly.
know you guys are deep into your season, making that final push. Want to wish you the best of luck. Thanks for taking the time to do this, and continued success on the Spanish. Look, I took 4 years, but it's been like 20 years. I was almost going to go there a few times, but I'll save
Oh
it.
wow.
I'll save it for another time. You and I can we can practice together after I hit up some Duolingo.
Yeah, ¿quieres hablar o no? No
Un
hoy?
poco, un poquito, pero hace 20 años y soy muy tonto también. So, I mean, it's you like that, right?
Yeah, I like that. That's good. That's good. Exactly. That's my thing. As long as you're trying,
Right.
you're doing good. That's it, and everything else comes after that. The first step is willing to put yourself out there. So
Absolutely. Well,
keep it up.
you've done that. You keep it up too. Thanks, Tommy.
All right, see you later.